This segment of Black Swarm is dedicated to Oom Hemmen from Holland, who was a banker in the Rabobank, who had been installing the rope safety barrier, reported to Babbage. They had been surveying the inside of the building, and Charlie fed this new data into Bessie. After much tinkering and adjusting, the assistant stepped away and stood near a group of lanterns at the furthest end from the locked entrance. Charlie explained the workings of the main analytical comparator, which was the heart and soul of Bessie. Beside the device sat a lever which could be shifted through 9 positions. Beside it sat another lever which could be placed in random or logical mode. Each position on the lever activated a different function on Bessie. One was a protocol that allowed Bessie to go from point A to point F by following the trail of bright lights at points B, C, D, and E. 2 was a protocol that caused Bessie to randomly wander around and sense her surrounding with her intersecting beams of light, which she could then map out on the paper strip recording device. There were several other protocols, such as the one that allowed her to drop or pick up a payload when she sensed several required conditions happening simultaneously. 0 was the startup protocol, and Charlie Babbage moved the lever to 0. Then he switched Bessie into random mode. When she's in random mode, she can pretty well do anything she pleases, he explained to the younger man. That big globe of whirling spin-dizzies is her randomness generator. Then Charlie took one of the brightly lit lanterns and held it in front of a telescope tube that poked out from the main analytical comparator. After a few seconds, the spin-dizzy behind the tube began to spin faster and faster, until with a whir click, the comparator came to life, and gears and levers and air bellows inside it began to feebly and hesitantly move. Fitzroy watched a counter began to count down from 5 minutes. If Bessie were aboard a stricken ship, explained Charlie, she would allow the crew 5 minutes to disconnect her before she fired herself up and piloted the supposedly crewless ship herself. The counter reached 0, and the main comparator began to speed up and began activating other components. Igniters brought the lamps in the foremast to blazing life, and beams of light crisscrossed the interior of the building. Air valves began to open and close, and slowly Bessie's beams of light fed their information to the main body of the mechanical intelligence. At that time, her creator shifted the protocol lever into the 2 position. He and Fitzroy joined the group of women, and they all shone their lanterns together at the machine. Her light seeker swung over until they were directly pointing at the enticing bright light. Babbage explained that usually at this point Bessie engaged her main engine and would come clanking over to record the bright light. Just then, however, they heard someone unlocking the doors to the building, and stepped a human figure framed in the outside daylight. It was David Gears. Charlie and his assistants shouted at the intruder to quickly close the door, but it was too late. In a flash, Bessie detected the new light, slammed into drive, and came charging at Mr. Gears, who stood petrified and impaled on one of the beams of light Bessie used to detect objects and obstacles. The towering, whirring, hissing platform ground to a halt just 2 feet away from David, who found himself looking up at her mechanical eyes nearly 10 feet above him. For several seconds the machine stood still while she dutifully recorded the existence of a light and an object positioned in front of the light. Then the machine charged off at a right angle, looped on a circular track several times, and charged back into the interior of the building. Black Velvet had been all curled up and sleeping during the initial racket, but as the noises grew louder, the cat woke up. Heading directly towards the startled, wide-eyed cat was a monster as big as a mountain, shooting beams of bright light out of its eyes and uttering hissing and roaring sounds from its invisible mouth. With a sick yowl of terror, Black Velvet leapt for the stars.